On today's episode, we take Toyota's new Highlander Hybrid into the Cascade Mountains to see just how capable this hybrid all-wheel drive system is in real-world situations. Whoop! It's coming up right now on Driving Sports TV. It's been just a couple months since we took a complete look at the all-new 2020 Toyota Highlander. If you want to see a more in-depth review of this family three-row crossover, be sure to check that out. Now you can get that same rig as a hybrid. The model we're testing today is the Platinum All-Wheel Drive Edition. Price as you see it here, $52,512 including some options and delivery. Though this hybrid looks similar to the petrol model on the surface, under the skin it's very different. Power comes from a 4-cylinder 2.5-liter gas engine good for 186 horsepower. This works in symphony with a trio of electric motors and a CVT for a total output of 243 horses. Altogether, that's 63 fewer ponies than the outgoing model. Like Toyota's RAV4 hybrid all-wheel drive system, the Highlander places one of the electric motors near the back, giving it independent control over the rear wheels. This eliminates parasitic drivetrain loss, resulting in better mileage for day-to-day driving while still providing the benefits of all-wheel drive. The other two electric motors live in the transaxle, with one providing power and the other acting as a starter generator. It might sound complicated, but the EPA rates this design at up to 34 miles to the gallon on the highway and 35 around town, which is very impressive for a vehicle of this size. Cargo capacities between standard and hybrid models are identical, with 16 cubic feet behind the third row, 48.4 with the third row folded, and a whopping 84.3 with all the rows flat. This being a Platinum, even the second row is quite luxurious, with captain's chairs, power sockets, heat control, and independent aircon. Then there's finally the main cabin. This features an updated look draped in high-quality leather. Even the seats are impressively stitched. Powered up, and the gauge cluster reveals a multifunction display in the center, giving you all the info you would ever need. All trim levels of the Highlander include Toyota's latest Safety Sense 2.0 system. This gives you collision mitigation with pedestrian detection, blind spot monitor, rear cross-traffic alerts, parking assist, and adaptive cruise control with lane centering and lane departure alerts. Even the headlights are LED with adaptive control. The large 12.3-inch touchscreen provides a wealth of camera views, including a fake 3D outside view, surround view, as well as reverse with tow and tracking guides. We'll use this system a little bit later when we hit the mountains. This wide touchscreen is pretty trick. You have the ability to reasonably reconfigure the various layouts. You can also plug into USB for Apple CarPlay or Android Auto support. This does have an EV-only mode, but given the rather small nickel metal hydride battery pack, this is really only usable in parking lots. Push the throttle at all, and the full system comes online. Now let's see how this setup responds to a fast launch on a slippery surface. For this, we'll switch into Sport mode, which should push maximum power to the back motor. As expected, the front engine overwhelms and we end up with a surprising amount of wheel spin. It is a very similar result to what we saw with the V6 model just a couple months ago. On paved roads, the hybrid drives very much like the V6 model. Even with a reduction in power, there's still plenty of passing power, and the brakes actually feel like normal brakes, which is high praise for a hybrid system. Let's try a 0 to 60. I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to flick it into Sport mode. 3, 2, 1, go. 20, 40, 50, and 60. Honestly, that's quick enough. This might not have as much horsepower as the standard V6, but honestly, I don't think any Highlander hybrid buyers are going to miss it. But today, we really want to see just how capable this all-wheel drive setup can be, especially now that it comes standard with a trail button. For this, we need to head into the Cascade Mountains, where we'll tackle a rough, but not unusual forest access road. The Highlander Hybrid's all-wheel drive system adds power to the rear wheels with the dedicated electric motor when it predicts slip will be occurring. And if individual wheels start to spin free, it will apply braking to redirect that torque back into the system. It's a setup that, in theory, could actually be superior to a standard drivetrain. However, that is not what we've seen so far, as most hybrids have struggled with this terrain compared to their traditional counterparts. Note that this Platinum Hybrid trim comes standard with 20-inch wheels and all-season radials. If you plan to hit the mountains, lower hybrid trims roll on 18s, which would be a much better choice here. More sidewall means less chance for damage of these nicely polished wheels. And we also have to consider ground clearance. This Highlander only has 8 inches of it. Now that we're finally at the most challenging portion of the trail, it's time to pause and consider the best options for this attack.
Let us keep it in normal drive mode, and I'm going to hit the trail button. What that should do is keep as much power as possible to the rear. Also, it should minimize slip. So we'll see how this does. Now I have a gauge cluster up here so I can see what's going on with my all-wheel drive system. Oh, and you know what? I can also turn on my view camera so I can see things coming up. That's pretty cool. Okay, now the whole idea here is to see how the all-wheel drive system deals with challenging situations. So I might stop completely like I just did, just to see how the all-wheel drive system gets us going again. Okay, let's go ahead. I think I'm going to do one of the more challenging lines here and lift 2 wheels. Whoop. Okay, never mind. I am just going to try to get up this climb. Yeah, so we're lifting. That wheel was losing grip. Okay, if we maintain momentum, we're good. Okay, now I have slippage on these 2 wheels. Now, with a traditional off-roading system, you would want to just maintain a low velocity and crawl. However, this isn't like a regular off-roader, so I am just going to keep the throttle in and let its logic do the work. You just put your foot into it and it eventually sorts itself out, which is pretty cool. Okay, now it only gets more complicated as we go up. Of course, this has pretty long overhangs, so I have to be really careful on approach and departure that I don't snag anything. Ripping off a bumper would be bad. Oh, what you doing? Oh, there's that stump there I don't want to snag on. So I'm going to go real slow. Doing it. Come on. Now the gauge cluster shows that more power is going to the back than the front. However, that has to be considered percentage of total available torque. So it's a much smaller electric motor on the back than, of course, the gas engine and the electric motor combo in the front. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Yeah. Oh. I think I just hit something. Let's back up a little bit. The easy line is going to the left. I want to really see how this all-wheel drive system does, though. So I'm going to put the front left wheel on this big rock here and see if we can get through this. Now, yes, I'm just keeping my foot flat. And it figures it out. Come on. I'm lifting just as I get forward momentum because I don't want to launch into a rock. Okay, it's slipping. I'm just keeping my foot steady and it gets over it. I have to say, this system is actually really impressive, especially when you compare it to the CR-V that we drove last week. The CR-V Hybrid really had struggles with some of the sections of that course. This car, even in the wet, no real problems. Just keep your foot into it and the logic eventually figures it out. So now let's see if it has a hill descent control system. I honestly don't know. I didn't read about it in advance. I'm going to keep it in trail mode and just go down and see if it catches. Nope, not catching. Doesn't appear to have a hill descent control system at all. Okay, well, we'll just keep our foot on it and see how she does. I have to say this did surprisingly well, especially when you compare it to the CR-V hybrid we had last week. Now, I know the CR-V hybrid and this vehicle are not direct competitors, but they're two totally different takes on crossover hybrid all-wheel drive systems, being that the CR-V actually uses a propeller shaft. This one does not. Surprisingly, this one actually did better. For Driving Sports TV, I'm Ryan Douthit. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week right here. Be sure to leave a comment, give a like, and share this with your friends. We make them for you, and we hope you enjoy them.